Dark Souls is one of the most importantest, most influentialest, and most bestest games of time. It's renowned for its richly weird and oppressive atmosphere, its hard to learn but satisfying to master combat system, and its bosses that are actually fun tests of skill like most bosses are supposed to be. I've also heard it's kind of hard, but I haven't experienced that myself yet. But by far the most important accomplishment of this game's existence are, for one, popularizing the Souls-like genre. While admittedly not creating it and a ways off from perfecting it, the game serves as the basis for which many games of the last decade have used, reinvented, and improved upon. The second thing is helping to raise the From Software team to major success. They've been able to take the formula they built in the Souls series and improve upon it and patch out faults. Because, there are a lot of faults. Don't get me wrong, I love Dark Souls 1. I usually don't play a game I dislike 5 times over. But it's clear that when developing this game, the team was still experimenting, throwing things at the wall to see what stuck. And while sometimes they really hit the mark, other times the thing they threw wasn't sticky enough, or like they had bad aim, or threw with a weak arm. This one guy just threw a fucking rock. What I'm trying to say is that the game's kind of rough, and there are a lot of things that could have been fixed. And I think these negative parts are found most prominently in the game's second half. Now, this was originally going to be a look at every single place in the game, but after going through all of them and thinking about it, I realized I just don't have a lot to say about a lot of them. The first half of the game is amazing. To start though, it's not visually interesting. Besides the dark root areas, which are the only forests in these games I actually like, and the Undead Asylum and Burg, which have an unfair nostalgic factor over them, most of these places don't really stand out from your typical medieval fantasy look. But the actual structure of these places that reward exploration, open up paths back over themselves and loop around to other stages and connect the world of Lordran, I'm in the pool that thinks this is the best thing the game does. I hope Elden Ring tries this type of level design out again, but until then, this area structure is wholly unique to Dark Souls 1. No matter how many times I play through these parts, those moments where I come from the edge of Blighttown, run through the Valley of the Drakes, run up the tower in the Darkroot Garden, and find myself back in the Undead Burg. It's amazing. You don't have to like all these places. You definitely don't have to. Fuck the depths. But they all at least deserve respect. Then you get to Anor Londo, the most iconic and beloved place in the entire series, only competing with, well, Anor Londo again. When you look at this place as a whole, there are a lot of things that don't really make sense or work, but there's so much passion and greatness in this place, you can't help but love it, just like this game in general. It fits that this is the climax of the game for many, because after here, the quality just kind of plummets. There are a few outliers like the Painted World, which feels more akin to the higher quality in the beginning half, Ash Lake and Kiln of the First Flame, which are visually awing, but don't offer much in terms of content, and Ulasil, which is DLC that I'm not going to count or mention for the sake of this video. But once you beat Ornstein and Smo, meet Guinevere, get the crock pot heated up and set out to find the ingredients, everything just kinda goes downhill. The 4 big boy souls needed to enter the Kiln of the First Flame, with 2 areas surrounding each. Seath the Scaleless in the Duke's Archives in the Crystal Caves, Gravelord Nito in the Catacombs in the Tomb of the Giants, the 4 Kings in the New Londo Ruins in the Abyss, if you want to count that as an area. If you don't, then just the upper and lower areas of the Prior, and the Witch of Izalith in the Demon Ruins and Lost Izalith. These areas all house great souls. They all suck ass, and make up what you will be doing until the final boss. Alright, so here's how I'm going to break it down. I'm going to talk about each of these areas with the lore they keep and talk about what makes them so bad. This list was originally going to go from the least offensive to the Tomb of the Giants, but after further analysis, all these places are equally ass in their own special little quirky ways, so order doesn't really matter. Except Tomb of the Giants, I'm gonna bully that place personally. But with all that said, hello, I am Mad Static, and I'm going to be talking about the areas that make up the shitty later half of Dark Souls 1. Wow, this one has changed a bit. Through my playthroughs, New Londo found itself heavily disfavored by me, but as I start to really think about it and take note of everything, this place actually wasn't nearly as bad as I perceived it to be. First problem though, this place is kinda ugly. I kinda appreciate the whole ghost town aesthetic to a degree, but it also leaves the place feeling unimpressive. Why did it have to be so dark? It's to the point where it's not too much trouble to see where I'm going, but any other details in the environment are lost. I should mention this now because it will come back up later, but I very much value my sense of sight and very much mind when it's taken away. But in the end, this place looks exactly how it acts. Boring. This place is just a slog to go through every time. It's just never an engaging level outside of the last bits. Once the second half of the level opens up and you release the floodgates, things get a bit better. The 5 or 6 dark wraiths hanging in the lower part of the level are actually engaging and challenging enemies, and the bottom floor itself is pretty fun to explore, in contrast to the entire first part and its ghosts. The ghosts are probably the worst offense to this level. First off, you're gonna need an item to even fight these things, which, while a bit annoying at first, isn't too much trouble once you know. I just wish that when the item's effects wear off, it could be a bit more obvious about it. That's caused me at least 2 deaths. For the enemies themselves, you know when most enemies have their attacks kind of glitch through the walls and hit you when they really shouldn't? They just made that a mechanic, with the addition of flying. I have never played a game that has made attacking ghosts fun. If it's something like Luigi's Mansion, then it can work, but the act of actually hitting ghosts is never satisfying. It just feels like I'm hitting air, except it hits back and moans obsessively. So they suck, but after that, the only thing that's really left to talk about is the boss of this area. I can never really pin down how I feel about the 4 kings. I've had moments where I've considered them among my absolute favorite bosses in the game, and others where I've loathed them. There are so many moving parts to this boss, and not all of them are in your control. There's no bonfire in New Londo, which obviously sucks. You have to sacrifice a ring slot to even be in the arena, which I have forgotten to put on too many times. There's these stupid ass platforms that can stop you on the way down because one of the designers felt cute. The arena itself is just really cool blank void, but it can also obscure your distance between you and the boss. The boss's attacks are simple and easy to predict, but hit like a fucking dump truck. Surprise, surprise, there are 4 kings, but not all at once. At first. It starts off with 1 king, with the others spawning in every 40 seconds from each other. If you get the damage to kill each before the other gets in, you're gold. This will be a fun test of timing and damage. If you don't, it's kinda up in the air. Because by far the biggest and most erratic problem with this fight is the AI. Sometimes it feels restrained, other times it doesn't give you a chance, leading to a lot of deaths that can't help but feel like they shouldn't have happened. The others may sit back and give you time to take the other out, or they might not. If all 4 spawn in, you are fucked. And even if you do manage to kill some of them, they can come back if you're not fast enough, but they won't count towards the boss's health. There are so many variables thrown in here, and while I think that's a good thing for the most part, sometimes bad timing along with some messy AI can mess things up. Overall though, I'd say this is a good boss and the one true highlight of New Londo Ruins. But even that boss can't help this place from feeling like a drag. I really do feel every minute I'm in here. It's quite draining, and I like corny puns, but I don't even intend that one to be a pun. Usually, nothing is worse than a game being boring, but with the levels accompanying it, I think New Londo kind of gets away with it a bit. Honestly, from an objective standpoint, these are by and far the worst areas in the entire game. They mostly lack any kind of design competency and have a general unfinished feeling to the whole thing. Most of the demon ruins are just big open spaces with mini bosses grouped together. You know those Mario Maker levels where like 6-year-olds would make a completely flat stage and just spawn hammer bros everywhere? Well, they have the hammers. Wait, no, those are axes. But you get my point. At the middle section of this entire place, there are 5 bonfires and 2 bosses within like a minute of each other, which I just thought was really funny to point out because there's a lack of bonfires later in the level where they're actually needed. Lost Izalith is, remember the Mario Maker kid? Okay, this is like his 3rd level. They've definitely gotten better at making these. There are more obstacles and things to do, I guess. But it's essentially the same thing. Large areas with clusters of enemies, except now there are branches and lavas to walk on. If you want to consider that variety, then go ahead, but it's not changing anything you're doing significantly. Now the bosses... Okay, never-ending shit. That's literally what one of the boss's names are, depending on your context for discharge. It is the most interesting part of that boss. And then there's Asylum Fire Demon Ass guy. I really don't care about these 2 bosses. Centipede Demon, though, is a more interesting case. I used to absolutely, wholeheartedly despise this thing, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people still do. But I've actually kind of grown to like it. You start off on a small platform surrounded by lava, and this huge thing comes off the wall. The boss will throw out its hand at you a lot before trying to approach you, So what I think the developers were trying to do were to have you smack his hand and then find that it falls off and becomes its own enemy. Kill that and have enough interest in the ring that it drops to discover that it lets you walk on lava and fight the boss like that. From there, it actually becomes kind of fun. Not anything great, but it's actually kind of cool trying to manage your health from the demon and the lava that's nibbling away at your health. The problem is this message isn't clear enough to the player, and like me, most people will just try to make do with the small platform that they give you. If you do that, yeah, this boss is horrible, but once you know better, it's a fine fight. The Bed of Chaos is another boss I don't mind that much anymore, because I cheat. I don't see where you guys are having so much trouble with this boss. Just shoot at it from a distance. You guys want to be aggressive and shit and get yourselves killed, so can't blame the game. Then you just quit. There's no claiming shit. No shit. And then you just plop up right back here. What's the problem? As the old saying goes, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. That fucking killed me? Easy peasy, easy peasy, lemon squeeze. Fuck! Easy peasy, lemon. Oh, thank Christ! Alright, now we just. No! The weird thing is, this is the only boss in the game that compromises on its difficulty by saving your progress. This at least shows that the developers were aware of the problems with this boss, or difficulty of the boss. If they saved your progress on the boss, why didn't they make other simpler adjustments? Like, why didn't they put a bonfire next to the boss if they were already expecting you to definitely die, instead of forcing this insanely long run-up? Why do they force players to jump and platform, a concept that the game itself isn't comfortable with at all? Why didn't they just press delete? Why didn't they just press... This is the only moment in these games where I would rather glitch the game's systems instead of facing the boss the way it was intended. The time I spent on this boss, sometimes just due to having a very unlucky streak, is more time than I've spent in the preceding two sorry excuses for levels. It's by far the worst thing to come out of this series. But I don't hate this place. I mean, it's pretty vibrant. There's lots of red and color. Almost every place in this game is cramped as hell, so as lazy as it is, the big open spaces of nothingness were a somewhat nice change of pace. But to sum up what makes me personally tolerate this level more than others, I think a level that is functionally bad, like this one, is, ironically, a lot less bad than a level being boring, or at worst, irritating. That's why for a while, this set of levels were the ones I gave the most slack, cause again, New Londo was really not entertaining. But as boring as it was, no part of that level made me actively angry with design choices. Most of the demon ruins and Lost Izalith also don't invoke irritation above the boss ran. I just went on as anything to go off, not all of the area avoided it. But the next few places are annoying, irritating, anger-inducing, any other synonym for making my head hurt. And I don't say those things lightly, okay? I built a resistance to this kind of thing as a self-proclaimed pro Dark Souls gamer. But these areas have found a way to stoke the dormant flames of anger, of the bonfire of my raging. Here are the next places. Now, I have spent the most time in the Duke's archives. This piece of shit Chandler Striding can attest to that. And throughout my many hours here, I could never shake that familiar Dark Souls 2 feeling. Specifically places in that game such as the Iron Keep, Drangleic Castle, and Shrine of Amana. For one, like those places, the archives are very aesthetically distinct, with its vibrant grayish whites making the concrete out, while the area's harsh blues wash over them. Especially in this game, it stands out without hurting my eyes, like the Lost Izalith place I don't want to talk about. But like those Dark Souls 2 areas I just mentioned, it also stands out for its approach to difficulty. To be frank, it's a bitch. To start off, you're thrown into a boss encounter which you have no choice but to die in, and there's a large chance you'll die by curse. Now, the weird big-eyed frog things in the depths probably introduce you to the curse mechanic, but they're fairly easy to deal with, so this is the first time dying to curse for many. Which means not only will your health be halved, but this will be a surprise too, leaving you no means of counteracting it, and leaving your health bar stuck like that for a while. The staircase section after is fine enough, but getting back to the main hall, that's where shit goes down. Something about this whole area's difficulty feels really similar to the way Dark Souls 2 goes about things. It's less of a genuine challenge and not gimmicky or overwhelming even. It just feels more malicious. Like the sole intent behind some of these design decisions were to fuck you over. Where Dark Souls 2 differs is that it's very blunt when it's being bullshit, where this game is a lot more slick about it. There are a few moments in this area where you're not being attacked by something out of your range. The Chandler's magic attacks I don't mind as much, even though they do more damage, but the arrows that the regular mobs shoot at you are doing way more than they have any right to. There are going to be a few moments here that test your patience, and if you fail, the game will have fun with you. But just like Dark Souls 2, if you raise your shield, look every which way and take your time, it's more than possible. Just teasing and testing. For those reasons, I can't outright say I hate this place or even think it's bad. It feels like an above average level from Dark Souls 2, and I don't know how many people mistake that as an insult. Right in the Archive's backyard is the Crystal Caves, which is in my opinion the most visually stunning place in the game. It's a glistening domain of shiny rocks and sparkles that are a feast for the eyes. I wish I could see more of it, especially where I'm walking. Even though this place looks ginormous, in reality there's very little here you can actually explore and find. What makes it worse is that the parts you can explore and find are ruined by the fact that they had to force in some unique gimmick to gameplay by making the platforms invisible, having your only guide be some prism stones you can use or little droplets of crystals that land on the invisible surfaces. In a game that again is not used to dealing with small platforms you need to balance on, making those small platforms invisible was not a good idea. It wasn't a good idea. Then you get to Seath, who besides that is my personal least favorite boss. The fight can go two ways. Either you're trying to kill him and he's dead before I can finish this sentence. Or you can try to get the Moonlight Greatsword by cutting off his tail, which is a hassle to say the least. There are only two attacks this guy does that should have any sort of chance at killing you, and the worst of these activates when you're at his back. The tail flail thing he does is deadly, and he's very quick to use it when you get behind him, so you need to hit his tail quick. That itself is a problem because of the tail size. It's long, thick, and hits really hard. Don't think about that last sentence too much. Its size makes it hard to tell exactly where the game wants you to strike to make it fall off. You can go further down his tail, obviously, but that takes away more time that you don't already have, until he starts doing the stupid tail tantrum thing again. Cutting Seath's tail off is an annoying challenge on an otherwise unimpressive boss. The Crystal Caves is a bunch of missed potential housing one of the game's stupider gimmicks, and the Duke's Archives is a cool area filled with enemies and obstacles that aim to upset you. Literally, they have the bow and arrows they aim. And with that, we've reached the last set of levels. The Catacombs and the Tombs of any goddamn sense. It all dies here. Design sense, sense of sight, the developer sense of sanity in my mind. I also lost some pocket change down here. The Catacombs are an interesting case. Overall, I think it's the best out of the 7 areas I've been talking about. In many respects, it's very good, actually. Aesthetically, I mean, it achieves what it wants to. Look dead. The level has a lot of verticality to it, even making it possible to skip the entire thing. There are a number of environmental contraptions and situations that make you explore a bit, and the area is happy to reward you for doing so, assuming you survive whatever challenge they set up. I actually really like the Necromancer mechanic in the Catacombs. You can try to rush down the Necromancer and worry about the skeletons after the fact, or take down the skeletons, look around, take them down again, and continue your search until you find the source. There aren't actually too many problems with this place, except for the fact that it's cramped. In Dark Souls 1, the whole world is out to get you, and that includes the walls. If you attack in an area with no space, it'll ricochet off the wall, okay? I'm not a science expert, but I'm pretty sure that's how physics work. That makes sense, find a way to deal with it. Except enemies don't adhere to this rule most of the time. Not only that, but the game is known for throwing large groups of enemies at you at once, which makes spacing and being aware of that space vital in the later game. Like the Catacombs, where a large number of skeletons have a revival mechanic and it's very cramped. It makes a lot of the challenges in this place turn frustrating, as you can't manage to lay a single hit but the enemies will have no problem doing theirs. This isn't the first time the game has this problem, it's a similar situation in the earlier depths, except I hate that place more because it's disgusting. But I don't think that takes all the value away from this place. There's a lot of good here, though there are some other problems I do have. An essential blacksmith and a bonfire in the remaster is hidden off the side of a broken set of steps and some very small ledges you have to land on. These don't look safe at all to land on, and sometimes they still aren't, because proper landing physics are hard to make, but precarious leaps of faith were still put in the game. Next to this bonfire, you'll find the bottom floor of this level and its boss, both containing wheel-based enemies that I don't want to talk about for completely opposite reasons. Overall though, yeah, I'd call the Catacombs the least worst out of the 7. Maybe even good. It's kind of funny actually, because I think I give this place a lot more favor than most people do. go on any forum where the catacombs are mentioned, and people are not fond of it, to say the least. But that's the thing. I like this place a lot more than most people, but at least from what I've seen, I seem to dread the next place more than most. Okay, Tomb of the Giants. This miserable piece of dog shit that's considered a level. This abomination of stage design. Let's switch it up and talk about Gravelord Nito first. This used to be hands down my least favorite boss in the game. I considered every boss better than this. It wasn't even that I didn't know how to fight him. Well, admittedly, I didn't know about the divine weapon thingy, but I knew the optimal strategy to fight him. Stick to him like glue, let him kill his own mobs, tank all the damage in AoEs, and then hit him. I really did not like fighting him like this. At first. Actually, now it's pretty okay. It's a fun little clusterfuck of a fight. I never mind it anymore. I honestly think I judged Nito a little bit too harshly for some different reason. Some kind of outside force or experience directly prior to this battle that may have influenced my opinion. Now that we can actually talk about the Tomb of the Giants, I actually noticed a lot of similarities with this place and the others in terms of flaws. Admittedly, one place I can't link back to the tomb is the Crystal Caves, an area that's annoying because you have to balance on small platforms while not being able to see where you're going. I know there's a comparison here, but I just don't see it. I know some people think that darkness and not being able to see is a useful gimmick that tests your ability to play with a lack of sight. Yeah, no, fuck that shit. A huge appeal of discovering a new area is the design of it all. Seeing the wonderfully designed sights. Charting out the area's size and length. Planning on where you're gonna go. You know what makes it suck even more? The area right before Nito is this beautifully lit and captivating cave that's wasted on some fucking pinwheels. Why wasn't this the theme for the whole area? It would have been something, even great. This is nothing, and it looks like shit. By which I mean it has an ugly personality. What is it about the Crystal Caves and the tomb that makes them think that small platforms plus not seeing equals good gameplay? I'm already blind. Can my balls please have some room to breathe? You know what also doesn't go well with either of these? Giant skeletons. Can be regular enemies in the dark on the small platforms where you'll probably not have a shield trying to see with a stupid lantern. It had to be giant skeletons. Now, you might be thinking, no shit, idiot, it's called Tomb of the Giants, but get this. What if they called it the Tomb, and that's it? Look at this room you find an Ember in. Small, compact, and filled with 6 giants. Again, no light, no shield. Great design. But if you get past all of that shit, as if you've been a good dog, the game will throw you a bone. By which I mean a dog made out of bone. Look at the archives, archers, and chandlers, made to enrage you in the specific situation you're in. The developers had a very fun idea here likewise. Take 2 of the most aggressive enemies in the game, the dog, the skeletons, mix them together, and give them a steroid Mario mushroom to make some kind of bloodborne reject, and only put it in the one area with the small platforms and no light. This area has in small platforms. It's honestly parts like this, and the enemies and the dukes, and those small platforms on the way down to the 4 kings that remind me that there are people behind these games. People who are really having fun designing some of this stuff, knowing how annoying it was gonna be. Or maybe they just had a really bad day and wanted to cause someone pain. But this is the work of people. And not just any people. Gamer people. You know the last thing that sucks? Once you've managed to explore the area, you realize how much darkness is the only thing it has. The area is actually super small. It's like a cliffside that's not hard at all to get through once you know what you're doing. But I won't forget the pain of my first playthrough. This place is either more of a living hell than the actual hell of this game, or more boring than the actual hell of this game. Going through this area's inadequacies at creating a proper level with cruel and non-functional enemy placements, gameplay gimmicks, and platform sizes. I'm confident I've provided enough objective flaws as evidence in my subjective case that this area is dumb, stupid, and, what does the script say? Oh yeah, sucks. I'm sure there's reason enough for why the others might do other things worse, or why some insane person might actually like this place, but this is what I definitely consider to be the worst area in the game. I think one of the first things these areas made me realize was that Blighttown truly was the test of entry for Souls players, at least the ones who started with this game. The reputation Blighttown has is notorious. For people who haven't played the game, it feels like there's this common conception that it's a nightmare, having heard horror stories of the place left and right, and cementing it as by far the worst area in the game. And you know, I won't front, Blighttown is exactly that for new players. This place probably had more people drop the game than it dropped frames. Those same people went online, complained about it, and eventually this place was honorably crowned the fucking worst. The thing is, though, Blighttown is actually kind of tame next to the other places. Literally, it's next to one of the other places, am I right? Blighttown as a level is well designed. Should the developers have thought about the idea that no starting player was equipped to handle Toxin? Yeah, but overall, it's pretty competent. These last 7 areas can't even hold on to that most of the time. New Londo Ruins is a boring slog of an area with nothing of note besides its boss. Demon Ruins and Lost Izalith are both genuinely unfinished levels that produce the worst boss I have ever seen with my eyes. The Duke's Archives share too many similarities with Dark Souls 2's messy and time-wasting approach to difficulty. Crystal Caves is a waste of a beautiful area on a shitty gimmick. The Catacombs are better than the rest, but has a cramped design that really doesn't go good with its amount of mobs or the game's physics in general. And Tomb of the Giants is a great level, 8 out of 10. Inside the community, yeah, everyone knows they suck, but at this point, we've all been through the game like multiple times and have grown kind of used to them. If you came this far in the game already, most people just aren't gonna quit. The game's untouchable masterpiece status might have also played a role in drowning out any discussion of the horrendous state of the later game. But while they are the lowest points of the game, it still wasn't enough to ruin the game's experience for most, including me. At most, they might create this small, dreadful feeling inside your chest on a new playthrough, knowing eventually you'll have to come back to some of these places, but hey, you've done it once before, right? Just run past everything this time and skip it. Plus, you've got the DLC I purposely didn't talk about that makes the second half of the game so much better. And, while these places are definitely the worst areas in this game, they can rest assured knowing that they aren't the worst areas in the entire series, because God knows Dark Souls 2 goes off the fucking deep end sometimes. And with that, that's my video. Oh yeah, and happy 10th birthday, Dark Souls!